While sitting at home during this coronavirus crisis, you would have thought, when is the corona outbreak going to end? And when will your life come back to where it was? Well, even if it suddenly ends tomorrow, fear won't let people go back to their pre-corona lives. Ask yourself, would you be comfortable sitting in an airplane, or going to a centrally air-conditioned restaurant, or taking the train ride home, or just hearing someone cough? There are 4 potential scenarios when you can have confidence while stepping outside of your house. First, when you get your serological test done and find out that you are immune to the virus, which won't be applicable to everyone. Second, when more than 80% people outside get infected and recover, hence have antibodies in their blood to prevent them from getting infected again. This is a dangerous solution. Even if it was possible, it is highly unsustainable because we don't know how long the antibodies are going to last. Third, when government enforces lockdown till there is no active case remaining. You don't know how long that will take, thus lockdown is not a sustainable solution. Fourth, when a vaccine is developed and everyone is vaccinated against coronavirus, the best way to end this. Thus someone in the world should find a business incentive in making a coronavirus vaccine. Before we understand why the business of making a coronavirus vaccine makes no business sense at all, we need to first understand how a vaccine works, and secondly, the constraints pharma companies are facing while making such a vaccine. A vaccine, very simply put, is a weakened form of an infectious agent, in this case a virus, injected into a healthy individual to give their immune system a chance to understand the disease and create antibodies against it. In other words, your immune system fights and wins against a weak opponent, that is the vaccine, so that when the real opponent, that is coronavirus, infects the body, your immune system already knows how to defeat it, which minimizes the impact of the infection. Currently, most pharma companies have to go through a structured process of testing and evaluating their formulations of vaccine as governed by the medical councils of their respective countries. The US Food and Drug Administration, or the US FDA, is the leading voice amongst them. A typical vaccine test involves a 4-step trial process in order to gauge not only the efficacy of the vaccine but also to look at its side effects, because you don't want more people to die of the side effects of the vaccine than the underlying disease. The first step is preclinicals, which involves laboratory testing of the vaccine. The second step is phase 1 trials, wherein vaccine trials are conducted on 20 to 100 healthy volunteers, primarily to check the efficacy and side effects. The third step is phase 2 trials. This phase includes studies that may provide additional information on common short-term side effects and how the size of the dose relates to the immune response. Trials in this phase are conducted on several hundred volunteers. The fourth step is phase 3 trials. Larger number of volunteers, typically in thousands, form part of these trials. 2 groups are formed, a control group and an intervention group. The control group is given a placebo, while the intervention group is given the actual vaccine. At the end, the efficacy and the side effects are compared between the 2 groups to determine if the vaccine is suitable for launch. The US FDA estimates that it takes an average of 12 years to bring a new vaccine into the market, which implies that businesses would have to wait for 12 years before they earn a single penny out of the investments they had put in. However, for emergency cases such as the pandemic that we are currently facing, this timeline can be severely shortened to 12 to 18 months, which is a great news for businesses. This short wait time coupled with huge demand seems like a great opportunity for a pharma co, right? Well, let's look at all the business aspects and see if this is truly the case. At Bear Business, we like to simplify the way we look at things through our circle of business process. Any business starts with a set of constraints. The constraints of 2 greatest resources, money and manpower, or as economists say, capital and labor. And due to this, a company has to carefully choose its bets. Its investments on an opportunity therefore are dependent on the magnitude of the expected return from that opportunity and the probability of that return getting generated. When investments yield a marketable product or a service, it needs to be sold to the consumers, thus generating revenue. Revenue is nothing but price into volume. While there are several factors governing the volumes which a company can sell, the price is determined by the price sensitivity of consumer, the competition, and the government regulations. The goods and services produced require cost to be incurred. Cost of research and development, manufacturing, selling, and other business costs like salaries, compliance, etc. Now at the end of it all, once the product has been sold and the costs have been incurred, the net sum left or the profit is what goes back to the investors who took the pain of doing all this for the expectation of a return. The returns made determine how the primary constraints of the business would change. If the opportunity made a profit, then it will get more capital. If it made a loss, then the constraints would narrow down further, thus having a negative impact on the future investments. And this is the circle of business. In the given context, let's take an example of a pharma company which had invested $1 million for a vaccine and ultimately gets approval and a patent. Due to the patent, the business commands the price it wants from the consumer who don't have many options to choose from now. Hence, the pharma company gets to sell to a large number of consumers and ends up generating a return of approximately $900 million in annual benefit after taxes, with a recurring benefit to the tune of $13 million post-taxes every year. This benefit would come at the end of 12 years. Since the business now has a proven track record of making expected returns, it would be easier for it to attract labor capital at a lower cost along with seeking more investments going forward. In case of the coronavirus vaccine, there are various pros and cons to the situation. Let us first look at the pros of the situation. The time span to make return has been crunched to 12 to 18 months, which is great. The brand equity created would help sell companies other products, thus increasing returns in future. Normalcy would return, enabling stable returns on all other investments. The world is the target market, thus there are huge volumes waiting to be captured. Easier licensing deals at such a time of emergency would reduce the manufacturing costs. Thus the company can expect to make a higher return, right? But before drawing that conclusion, let's understand the cons of the situation. Such crunch timelines would require a high number of resources which would have to be moved from other profitable investments, meaning very high opportunity costs for the company as a whole. Prices are almost certain to be highly regulated by governments to provide access to all people. Competition would hinder price as well as the volume growth. Production on a mass scale would start very early in anticipation of an approval, so that the drug can be immediately distributed to the masses. Just in case the vaccine fails testing or a competitor's vaccine is more effective, the entire production batch would go useless as well as the R&D, meaning there is high risk of investment. In order to reduce production times, higher costs would be incurred because there is no time for proper planning and sourcing. All these factors combined result in a possibility of huge losses for a pharma company and thus won't make any business sense. Hence, pharma companies would think twice before investing into developing a coronavirus vaccine. While there are more cons than pros in this situation, governments and NGOs can jump in to tilt this equation in the favor of the pharma company. The reason they should do this is because the economic cost of letting coronavirus run its course and infecting majority of the population would be exorbitantly high, and the recovery won't be easy. Compared to that, an investment in the form of grants made to a pharma company in developing a coronavirus vaccine would be minuscule. Let's look at how the equation changes if grants are received from government or NGOs. The grants from government or NGOs would ease out the burden of investment from the pharma company. The pharma company would then have enough money to put in other profitable products, thereby reducing its opportunity costs. The dual prospect of developing a great brand equity and normalcy returning back early increases the expectation of overall returns, making the circle of business favorable for the pharma manufacturer. Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is one such NGO which is funding not just the research but also pre-production of such vaccines by pledging $1 billion for the cause. Governments too can help with subsidies and tax rebates to neutralize the profitability challenges. To summarize, despite the high demand for a vaccine and the expedited approval timeline, a for-profit pharma company may think twice before entering the business due to the obvious impact on the overall return on investment, which is primarily happening because of high commitment of scarce capital and resources, high chances of R&D failure, low profitability, and high competition. However, with investment support by government and NGOs such as the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, there is a potential to unlock an overall positive impact by building extremely high brand equity at a global level for the pharma company. This would incentivize the pharma companies to develop and roll out a coronavirus vaccine to put an end to this corona crisis once and for all.
गाइस ये तो हो गया, अगला टॉपिक क्या उठाना है?
ब्रो ऑडियंस से पूछते हैं और क्या करेंगे.
Thanks guys for watching our video. If you learned something new from this video, please
Like this video.
Share the video.